Are you a loyal Godfather fan? Then you've come to the right place. This is Take the Cannoli, the Godfather Podcast. Here we talk about everything Godfather, from the movies to the effect on our culture. Still going strong 50 years later. Here's your host, author and Godfather expert, Lou Bortone.
The Godfather Podcast, Episode 9, A Runt Will Not Play Michael. While Francis Ford Coppola had won the hard-fought battle to cast Marlon Brando as Don Corleone, the casting of Michael would prove to be an all-out slugfest, nearly resulting in the firing of Coppola. Francis knew he wanted Al Pacino to play Michael from day one, but at the time, Pacino was a relatively unknown actor with little experience and even less name recognition. Paramount studio execs, and studio head Robert Evans in particular, insisted that the role of Michael go to an A-list star like, at the time, Robert Redford, Ryan O'Neal, or Warren Beatty. Even Jack Nicholson and Dustin Hoffman were considered. In all, there were at least 40 Michaels under consideration for the role. Anyone but, quote, that midget Pacino, as Robert Evans referred to him. Absolutely not, Evans told Coppola. A runt will not play Michael. But just like with Brando, Coppola was tenacious and relentless. So Coppola secretly summoned his personal casting choices, Pacino, Caan, Duvall, and Keaton, to San Francisco to do a secret homemade screen test, as James Caan recalls in this clip.
I forget the amount of time, but a very short time, he knew the cast. As a matter of fact, Bobby Duvall, Al Pacino, and myself flew up to San Francisco, the Zoetrope, Eleanor. His wife cut our hair, put a bowl over her head, cut our head, and with a 16-millimeter camera, we improvised and did some stuff. And that was it, okay?
Don Corleone, please. Hey, it's good, huh? It's good.
That cost him like 4 corned beef sandwiches, I think, the whole,
Coppola was convinced that if he screen tested his casting choices, he could persuade the suits at Paramount and Gulf and Western to go along. Here's a rare look at a few of those secret screen tests from Coppola.
I was more or less just sort of wandering. I didn't know what was going on. I mean, movies were very new to me, and Duvall would say before each take, he said, no matter what you do, you're going to laugh on this take. And I didn't want to laugh.
I don't want to hear this, Sonny, but if your father dies, make the deal.
It's easy for you to say he's not your father. Wait a minute, it's easy for you to say it's not your father. It's easy for you to say it ain't your father. Fuck you and your asshole. Very nice, Jim.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Come on, you asshole. You started.
I know you don't want to hear it, Sonny, but if your father dies, make the deal.
Well, it's easy for you to say he's not your father.
Once the screen tests were finished, Coppola sent the tapes to Evans in Los Angeles and Bortone in New York City, and the result was they hated them. In fact, Bortone was so pissed off that he was ready to fire the director. Instead, the execs got much more involved in the casting process, testing hundreds of actors at a cost of almost $500,000 just for the screen tests.
They tried to kill him, my father. They did. They nearly did. Mr. Brazzi went after them. And so the story goes...
The story goes that he killed 6 men in 2 weeks.
He killed 6 men in 2 weeks.
6 men in 1 week.
And he kept sneaking Al in, At the end of the day, he kept testing Al,
It kept happening a lot. And it was countless. They went on and on. I remember saying at the time, I just don't respond well to being around where I'm not wanted. Well, anyway, he just stayed with it. It was his tenacity, and that got me in there.
Paramount's list of actresses to play Kay Adams included Tuesday Weld and Michelle Phillips, but Coppola was enamored with the quirky Diane Keaton. And Keaton's preference was definitely to have Pacino play Michael. So Coppola continued to push for Pacino, testing him over and over again.
You see, I'm not saying there's Sonny, and saying Sonny, or
or Freddie, come here, I'd like you to meet, I'm not doing
sure
that.
how far to go. So he does it in this very indirect way. He doesn't say, look, my father is a criminal, a gangster who has been shot, and he kind of tells her little anecdotes. And at first, it's nice, even when it's lighter, it's fine, but the scene is a serious scene.
When I read The Godfather, whenever I would see the character of Michael, I saw Al's face.
Luca Brasi held a revolver against Hallie's head, and my father told Hallie that either his signature or his brains would be on the contract.
He wasn't a star, which was not pleasing to the executives at that time. He didn't look like stars look like at that time in the business.
So that when they were suggesting, like Ryan O'Neal or Robert Redford could be like a Northern Italian, I already had Al's face ingrained.
Michael, why are all these people bothering your father on a day like this?
Oh, that's because they know
What?
that no Sicilian can refuse any request.
For some reason, they were
wedding day.
not happy with Al's test. But I knew Francis wanted Al.
On 104.
Action. I was aware that they didn't want me, and
Michael, why are all those people bothering
at one point, and it was actually, it seemed okay finally. I thought, Francis, look, we'll do another movie together. I was relatively young, so I didn't know quite. I thought, well, maybe they were all like this. They get all. I had seen movies about Hollywood. I thought maybe that's why all the screen test.
Well, this is a slow wedding. This isn't a wedding.
At one point, it looked as if the studio would accept Jimmy Caan as Michael.
One night, I got a call from Francis. He was in New York, and he said, Jimmy, and I could tell from his voice this was not his idea. Jimmy, why don't you come in and test? I said, test what? What, do you got a Porsche you want me to drive around the block? What do you want? Test what? He said, please, they want you to play Michael. What? Please. So I went in.
168.
Action.
Michael, why are all those people bothering your father on a day like this?
Well, that's because they know no Sicilian can refuse a request on his daughter's wedding day.
Oh, good.
I don't think you can name an actor that wasn't there. They were all sitting around on cement floors from 7 in the morning till 8 at night. Guys with, some guys talk like this, that guy's from all over the world.
With less than a month to go before the cameras rolled, there was still not a final decision for casting Michael. Evans and Coppola were locked in an epic battle, and neither would give an inch. Finally, worn down and fed up with Coppola's inflexibility, Evans did an abrupt about-face and agreed to cast Pacino if Coppola would cast James Caan as Sonny. The director had persevered once again.
Luca Brasi held a gun to his head, and my father assured him that either his brains or his signature would be on the contract. It's a true story.
A little point of memorabilia, that was Marcia Lucas, who was the editor, George's wife, who cut those tests all together. And she told me that, she said, cast Al Pacino because he undresses you with his eyes.
Marcia said that.
Yeah.
Right.
And Diane said, I said, Diane, which one do you want? She said, Al.
I knew Diane before the test. We had a kind of immediate like for each other. And Francis, I think, recognized that and thought that would be useful in the picture.
You're trying to scare me. You don't want me to marry you. Oh, that's very clever, but it's not going to work.
Okay.
I saw her in a movie called Lovers and Other Strangers, and two things. I just thought I just liked her myself. I thought she was a cute woman, I just was attracted to her. But also because she was so eccentric and kind of weird in a way, her delivery, that I thought this character of Kay could be like really straight, boring character, and that maybe Diane would bring some eccentricity to it.
Fredo, my brother Fredo, this is Kay Adams.
Hi.
How you doing?
So what I'm saying is that they spent $400,000 or so on tests and wound up with the 4 corned beef sandwiches.
Ironically, by the time Evans agreed to cast Pacino, Al had committed to do The Gang Who Couldn't Shoot Straight for MGM. Assuming he'd never get the Godfather role, Pacino was now under contract at MGM. Now Evans, who never wanted Pacino to begin with, had to use some of his muscle to get Pacino out of the MGM contract. In a move that could have been right out of The Godfather, Evans reached out to his powerful consigliere, the legendary real-life mob lawyer Sidney Korshak. Korshak called MGM studio head Kirk Kerkorian, and again, with life imitating art, threatened the MGM boss with some union problems if they didn't release Pacino from his contract. Whatever Korshak said to Kerkorian must have worked because Pacino was released from his role at MGM so he could play Michael for Paramount. In another ironic twist, Pacino was replaced on The Gang That Couldn't Shoot Straight by a young Robert De Niro. So after a long and drawn-out drama, the main cast of The Godfather was finally set. However, Coppola and Pacino's problems were far from over. Just 2 weeks into shooting The Godfather, Evans and Bloodborne were extremely unhappy with the dailies, saying Pacino wasn't delivering the performance the part needed. There was nearly a mutiny on the set, and both Pacino and Coppola were under constant threat of being fired. Replacement actors were being considered for Pacino, and the director knew he'd have to show the Paramount brass that Pacino could step up and deliver. So Coppola decided to move up one of the most crucial scenes with Pacino, the shooting of Sollozzo and Police Chief McCluskey.
I was already hired as Michael. They kept saying, well, when is he going to do something? While we were shooting, there were hints coming back to me that I wasn't wanted. And with more than hints, people were actually, giggling when I go on camera. And the studio kept seeing this footage coming back, and they said, well, he's sort of, he seems dull. I was out, and then the Sollozzo scene came.
In the med. What guarantees can I give you, Mike? I am the hunted one. I missed my chance. You think too much of me, kid. I'm not that clever. All I want is a truce.
They kept me after that scene. That looked pretty good, I guess, when you could shoot a guy. Because they wanted me to assert myself. So there's that kind of assertion.
The director's gamble paid off. Once the studio execs saw the dailies from this scene, they decided to stick with Pacino. Still, there would be much more drama on the Godfather set, and we'll look at all that in future episodes of Take the Cannoli, the Godfather Podcast. Watch other episodes on my YouTube channel at Lou Bortone or on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever you get your podcasts. Ciao for now.
Thanks for listening to Take the Cannoli, the Godfather Podcast with Lou Bortone. Join us again next time if you know what's good for you. Capiche?